The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
For 3 episodes, I've gone pretty easy on you. We took it slow and we mapped it out pretty carefully and you let you arrive at the things at your own time. But tonight, that stops because there's a contradiction in you that's so sharp that once you see it, the patient version of this conversation is going to be over. Because you have the instinct. It's fast, reliable. It's a hard-fought instinct. It's for catching those serious problems early. And it's one of the best things about you because it fires the instant that something important starts to go wrong, and it will not let you rest until that thing is handled. Because it fires everywhere that you've decided to take seriously. Everywhere except one. You see, there's a problem in your life right now that you have moved on from months ago, maybe even years ago. And if it had shown up anywhere that you respected, you wouldn't have let it sit. Tonight, we look at why the same problem gets 2 completely different responses from the same man, and what that waiting has been costing you the whole time that you've been calling it something noble. So let's start with the instinct, because it's real and it deserves the respect. When something serious goes wrong in a part of your life that you've decided matters, you do not wait. You feel it almost before you can even name it. It's a wrongness, a signal that something is off and it's getting worse. And so what do? You move, you surface it, you say the uncomfortable thing in the room. You start to pull it apart, find the root cause, and throw whatever it takes at fixing it. You don't let that serious problem just sit and rot. The idea actually offends you. You've built your name on being the one who catches the thing while it's still small and then acts on it before it spreads. You've seen this. You've seen what happens to people who don't, the ones who feel the wrongness and look away, who tell themselves it'll sort itself out. But you've watched that problem and they ignore it, and the size of a hairline crack becomes the thing that brought the whole structure down. So you act early. It's on principle, because you know better than almost anyone walking that the cost of a problem is the lowest the day you first feel it, and it climbs every single day that you don't. So it's that instinct that has saved you more times than you could possibly count. It's not a small thing. It might be the single most valuable reflex that you own. You hold it up against your actual life because there's exactly one place where you have switched it all the way off. So let me ask you a question. In the domains that you take seriously, how long do you let a serious worsening problem sit before you act? Now hold on to that number in your head, because we're about to get to something. There's a problem in the most important part of your life that meets every test you'd use to trigger action anywhere else. It's serious, and you know that it's serious. This was never about something that you couldn't see, because it isn't small, it isn't improving on its own, and it has been going on long enough that new is not a word you can honestly use for it anymore. If this exact problem, this size, this seriousness, this duration showed up in anything that you actually took seriously, you would have acted on it a long time ago. It would have been reflexive. You wouldn't have needed anyone to point at it. The instinct would have fired and you would have moved that very week. But here, this instinct is silent. The same man who can't sleep over a problem at work sleeps fine beside this one. And not because you don't feel it, you feel it. It just sits in the background of most of your days, a low hum that you've become an expert at not turning toward. Because you felt the wrongness for a long time. And for the first time in your capable life, you felt it and you decided to wait. That's new. You don't wait. It's the one thing everyone knows at your work would never swear that you do. And notice what it cost you just to admit it. You spent years being known as the man who doesn't let things slide. Decisive. You're on it. ahead of the problem. To look straight at this is to admit that the description has a hole in it exactly where it matters most. That your decisiveness was partly a luxury, cheap to spend in the arenas where deciding never threatened you with anything. So if this was the exact problem appeared tomorrow in a part of your life that you took most seriously, how fast would you move? And what does the gap between that speed and your actual speed tell you about what you've been quietly deciding this is worth? And when you consider these two questions, consider this as well. How does a man who acts on instinct talk himself into waiting? He gives the waiting good names, doesn't he? It's not that bad. Every relationship goes through this. I'm picking my battles. Now's just not the right time. We're both just stretched thin right now. Take a moment and listen to those. Now, picture someone on your team using that exact language about a serious, worsening problem that they'd been sitting on for a year. It's not that bad. Now's not the time. You would see straight through every word of it, and it would be instant. You would not hear wisdom. You would hear a person managing their own discomfort by pretending this problem is smaller than it is. And you'd name it avoidance. And depending on the stakes, maybe something even harder than that. And you'd be right. The phrases you'd never accept from anyone you hold to a standard are the exact phrases you've been accepting for yourself, and probably for years. About the highest stakes problem you've got, picking your battles is a real thing. But you're not picking. Picking actually means that you're going to fight for some of them. And yet, you've quietly retired from this one and kept using the language of a man still in the ring. So if one of your people handed you the exact reason that you've been handing yourself, would you call it strategy, or would you call it what you already know it is? And here's what the waiting actually costs. And this is a part you've worked hardest not to look at directly. You tell yourself waiting is neutral, that nothing much is happening while you don't act, that you can get to it later and it'll be roughly where you left it. You do not believe that anywhere else in your life. Everywhere you respect, you run the opposite principle. An unaddressed problem does not hold still. It compounds. The crack spreads. The cheap fix becomes the expensive one. That is the entire reason you act early, because you know waiting carries a price, and the price climbs. And so you've staked your whole competence on knowing that. And then you walk into the most important part of your life and behave as though the meter isn't even running. It's running, and it's been running the entire time. The problem that you're tolerating is not the size it was when you started tolerating it. Something has been accruing this whole time, and quietly, and it's been in the background. And while you called your inaction patience, I'm not going to total it for you tonight, because we're going to do that later. But the part of you that does the math everywhere else already knows the bill is larger than it was, and that you are the one who has been letting it grow. And here's the quiet brutality of compounding. It's the slowest at the start. And so when acting would have been the easiest and the fastest at the end, when acting is hardest, your cheapest window was years ago. You spent it waiting. Every window since then has cost more than the one before. The window that you're standing in right now is the cheapest one you are ever going to get again. So, everywhere the price of waiting is real, you act early. Why is the single place you've decided waiting is free the exact place the price is the highest? So let's make this concrete in the one way that you just can't dodge. Imagine the man responsible for this part of your life reports to you. He's on your team now, and it's time for his review. You pull up his record. Here's what's in it. A serious problem, flagged by his own instincts, left unaddressed for, how long has it been now? A year? 3? Longer? No plan, no action, a long row of quarters where the same issue rolled forward untouched. and each one carrying a reason that sounded fine in the moment and yet accomplished nothing. So what's your honest assessment of this performer? You wouldn't be cruel about it, but you wouldn't lie either. You'd say he had every capability of the job required and didn't apply it. You'd say the gap wasn't skill, it was will. You'd say a man who performs like this in the role that matters most has a problem he is actively choosing not to solve. And then you'd do the thing that you always do with a performer like that. You'd stop accepting the explanations. You'd start expecting the change. You'd hold him to the standard. You'd hold everyone to the standard. Everyone but the man in the mirror, in the one role where the standard matters the most. So write the honest review of how you've performed in the most important role that you hold. And then ask yourself, would you accept that performance from a single person who reported to you? Now, the hard floor that's underneath all of this. The different response is not an accident. You didn't forget to act. The man with your instincts does not simply fail to notice a serious problem for years. You set the bar for action impossibly high in this one domain and on purpose. Because a high enough bar means you never have to clear it. If the problem only counts as serious enough to act on, once it has become a catastrophe, then everything short of catastrophe gets to be tolerated. And you get to call that toleration patience, maturity, perspective, even keeping the peace. A raised threshold is how a man makes his own inaction look like judgment. Saying things like, I'm choosing not to make this a thing, is the same thing as saying I've decided not to do the work, just in a calmer voice. And if there were anyone positioned to watch this the way your work gets watched, they'd have forced your hand a long time ago. But there isn't. So the threshold has sat exactly where you set it, just high enough that your own life never quite reaches it. You are not failing to escalate this. You are choosing not to, and you're doing it every day. And addressing the choice is the best word you own. So if you stopped pretending the threshold was set by circumstances and admitted it to yourself, what would you have to do tomorrow? Let's bring this together. You're choosing the gap. That was in episode 9. You're choosing it to stay where you're safe. That was in episode 10. You built it so that no one could make you look. That was in episode 11. And today, you've carried a flawless early warning instinct your whole life. And you aimed it everywhere except the one place where using it would cost you something. The same man who would never let a serious problem rot has been letting one rot on purpose, behind the best vocabulary that he owns. That's the friction. And it's the sharpest one yet, because you can't claim you don't have the instinct. You have it, and it's excellent. You just simply refuse to point it here. See, this price, it's not theoretical. It is not later, and it has been accruing the entire time that you've been calling it patience. So we're going to total it. We're not going to do that today. Tonight is just this. Stop calling it patience. You have called it negligence in anyone else. And the honest part of you, the part that runs the math everywhere it's allowed to, already knows exactly what it would do tomorrow if it stopped waiting for a permission that was never going to come. The band of brothers is where men stop tolerating at home what they'd fix anywhere else. So start acting while the price is still payable. And if you're ready for that, you know what to do.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.